Welcome back to this week's TV episode, episode 6. This week, Trevor and I want to highlight a new portion of our series called Did You Know? And this week, we are going to highlight a survey recently done. Typically, we're just going to be doing a statistic, maybe an article or a study that Trevor and I found interesting that week. Trevor and I will alternate. We will not know what the other person has found for that week and then introduce it in this episode. So this week I decided to kick it off, and I wanted to highlight a survey recently done by a company called Blind. So they took 3,000 workers from companies including Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. There's about 45 total companies, and they asked them in regards to pay raise versus work from home, if they would choose a permanent work from home option over a $30,000 pay raise. And wildly enough, 64% of people chose that permanent work from home option.
Wow.
We've talked a lot about that, how important work from home is, but initial thoughts, what do you think?
We've talked about it, but never $30,000 worth about it. That's a significant amount.
It is. And I think what's even crazier is that there's roughly 45 companies. It said roughly 45 companies were surveyed for this. Only 2 of them had a higher percentage of employees that chose the cash option.
Does it list what companies those are or what sector they're in?
Predominantly financial.
Huh. That's actually really interesting. What would you do?
Work from home. No doubt about it. I think the flexibility, I think obviously, that's a whole topic we can talk about in terms of like the candidates that we typically are working with. But the level of talent, the talent pool that you can have for, purely remote work options, especially in IT, you're having highly skilled individuals, and the war on talent that, gets kicked around all the time, that phrase. I mean, work from home is firmly being established as the number one, aspect of a role if people are looking to make a change.
It is. And I would say what I'm guessing used to be, the first question, what does it pay? When a recruiter reaches out, every recruiter that I work with, they say that's the number one thing people ask now is it remote? That is huge.
Yeah, certainly not taking anything away from, the pay scale and company culture and all that stuff. But certainly the that work-life balance, people are, they found a new sense of freedom. And I think companies have witnessed a significant amount of success with a model that was pretty much forced onto people through the pandemic. And, I think it's a trend that's here to stay.
So do I.
So that's something we want to kick off. Please leave your comments, your thoughts on this. We certainly want to hear, what your opinions are in terms of what would you do? Would you take the cash option? Would you take the work from home? Last week we highlighted more of my vertical with cloud and data professionals. This week we are going to switch over to Trevor, who's in the digital and creative space. So Trevor, I'm going to kick it over to you and give a little bit of context as to what your division handles.
Yeah, so it's a big umbrella with that creative digital marketing, traditional marketing, that we do service. So here we try and break it down into really 4 segments, kind of that creative and digital marketing, more content based, then project management, and then an overall design side. So it's a super fun industry to be in, great people, but also just the sheer volume of different roles that you can actually help companies fill.
That makes sense. And then, and speaking of trends, then in terms of, I guess skill sets, maybe experiences with different, industry clients, what types of trends are you seeing in that digital and creative market for candidates?
Yeah. So kind of keeping in line with that in-house versus agency, you notice a lot of companies that once outsourced some of those marketing or design functions to different agencies, they're actually trying to bring those in-house. So they're trying to build almost their own agency in-house. So that's a big shift you're seeing are different companies trying to do that, on the digital marketing and creative side. And then another thing in the creative space is just a glaring lack of diversity in a lot of realms. So you see a lot of people trying to get, not just more diverse talent on the graphic design level, the copywriting level, but really making those shifts, art director, creative director. So the whole vision can be seen through a more diverse lens, and, different stories can start being told.
I mean, that certainly makes sense, and I feel like that's a very important facet of what a lot of organizations are trying to do in some capacity. So it's definitely interesting to hear that that's a more prominent thing within digital and creative. Um,
Absolutely.
in terms of as a candidate, what can you do to differentiate yourself, whether it is going to an agency or just an in-house? Are there certain skill sets, anything of that nature that kind of set candidates apart that you've noticed as of late?
Yeah, I would say, and I think this actually was kind of one of your answers last week, but just certifications are huge. If you're more on the digital marketing side, getting your Marketo certification, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, even just, simple Google Analytics certification, those you can really see are when you have to kind of split hairs between candidates that have those certifications really tower above the rest. And then in the design realm, that's really up to you. There's a ton of different, design courses. There's some universities that offer classes, digitally and probably in person, that you can really advance your design skills. But it really is just kind of on you to do a little bit of homework and see what the best process would be there. But, I've talked to a few people that have actually gone through university courses, and
Mhm.
they say it's like a night and day difference, the design skills that they have coming out of it.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's something I never really knew existed. But then you start to see more and more people that are open to it, and more places that are offering it. And there's also been a kind of going back to trends that you're seeing.
Mhm.
You've noticed quite a few more roles that come out that are almost new and or hybrid roles. There was just a role that I saw posted. I believe it was a UX writing coach. And nobody has used the term coach before, at least in, that sense. And
Mhm.
I saw a couple of people talking on LinkedIn about, is that just something that companies going to utilize, or are you actually going to be seeing that as a role people start hiring for? So I think that could be something kind of on the horizon, are some roles that you really haven't heard about that are kind of being created now and added into these workflows.
Well, Trevor, definitely appreciate you shedding some light in the digital and creative space. Next week, we want to highlight, what are some of the things that companies are doing to have their organization stand out in an extremely competitive marketplace. What are those key aspects of the roles where you're getting a higher level of desirability from the candidates? So we will see you next week, episode 7 coming at you.